Small business players intimately connected to industries that export goods to the United States that are now subject to the 30% import tariff may be worried about what this means for them. This, as higher tariffs could lead to lower demand for those products in the United States, which could then have a ripple effect on supply chains and the ecosystems built around these export products, not to mention the potential human capital fallout. It's not clear whether the South African government will be able to secure a better deal down the line, but for now the 30% tariffs are a reality, and we understand more lately that those will take effect on the 7th of this month. So how can small businesses navigate this new reality? Well, to share his insights, I'm joined by Pat Mokgatle. He's a partner in the Business Services Outsourcing section at BDO. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. So what are the main threats that you see that small businesses here in South Africa currently face from this new reality that exporters find themselves in?
Good afternoon, Libo, and to the guests. I think what is important is to actually realize that you are sitting in a position where it was an unknown, and the unknown has taken place, where at the moment you will be incurring that 30% tariff. And as a small business or a business owner, you need to then look at your numbers and say, how do you then recalibrate? And it's important when you look at that recalibration to say, okay, now what's happened, we've got a 30% additional, as you rightly said. You know, you're now sitting in a position where your numbers are not going to stack up. You might have to lose individuals. You have to then also look at it across the board and say, effectively, you are sitting in South Africa. You are having what we call arbitrage in terms of you are now selling in a dollar state and you're sitting in South Africa. So therefore, you actually do benefit. So for example, if you're selling your goods for $1,000 and the rand actually depreciates, you actually make that margin there. So you have to go back to your numbers, check your margins, see where your margins are lining up, and look at whether that 30% additional cost, is that 30% going to eat up in terms of your margins, or are you actually still comfortable with selling to your customers? You have to know your customers. Will your customers be able to pay you 30% more? If they will not, then you need to also look at, have you got a concentration risk? What do I mean by concentration risk? Your biggest threat is that if all your customers are coming from one area and they all say, we cannot afford to pay you 30% more, then all of a sudden you've got a going concern risk because your whole revenue is concentrated in one region. So it's effectively important for us to realize as business owners that your risk has to be diversified and ensure that you're not sitting just in one area where if a 30% hits today, you are now in trouble and deep trouble. So important, the biggest threat is not looking at your numbers, not knowing your margins, and not knowing whether you can actually consume this 30% in terms of your operations, or will you need to find new customers who can actually afford to pay?
Yeah, no, I think what you say about concentration risk is really important. But of course, if you're looking to diversify your customers, especially overseas, that can't be achieved overnight. So what happens in the interim after having looked at the numbers? And of course, you need the lag time. You need to actually see how the market overseas, the United States, is reacting to this increase. Are they continuing to buy at 100% of what you normally sell, or are they now buying at 70%? But what do you do in the interim? Do you wait and see, or do you start to move now?
In the interim, it's very, very difficult, Lebu, because if you think about it, customers are not just waiting. We don't have the loyalty we had back in the day where someone is loyal to one specific brand. So you're going to have to also look at what can you do from a South African market perspective? What can you do from opening up within the Africa Free Trade Agreement that's actually on the go? What can you do on the continent? Because we cannot be waiting as entrepreneurs. As entrepreneurs, we have to always be agile and always moving. A lot of the times we have these strategy documents, and we'll say, for argument's sake, you know, a threat when you're looking at your SWOT analysis is political instabilities, it's policies, and yet we don't adapt to it. So we have to always adapt. And it's also very difficult. We must be honest. It's very difficult to open new markets because it takes time. There is a lag. So in the interim, you have to also look at, can you domestically sell? Can you look at the African region? Is there other areas or avenues where you can actually look at getting your product out there and your product moving? Because if you're going to wait, unfortunately, you do not know what will happen tomorrow. If those tariffs go to 60%, what then? You know, so we have to be careful of, you know, working with what's an unknown and work with what you do know. You do know your product, you do know your customer, and you have to have conversations, sit on emails, sit with your customers and understand, how does your pipeline look for the next 12 to 18 months? Is there sales that are probable? Cut out the what ifs and start having almost guaranteed sales or order books, so know exactly where you're going to land up, because the what if can really mess up your business.
Yeah, no, those are really excellent nuggets of advice. Thank you so much for that, Pat. We've run out of time. That was Pat Mokgatle. He's a partner in the Business Services Outsourcing Department of BDO South Africa. Well, as we celebrate Women's Month, we'll be looking at female leadership and ownership throughout August and even beyond that. And today we start by chatting to a woman who's at the cut and thrust of human resource leadership at a car rental firm that's grown exponentially since 2016. I'm joined by Nkanyeze Mhlongo, who's the group head of talent acquisition at Pace Car Rental, where she's responsible for hiring car washers through to senior executives at the company, and she somehow balances this role with the very important role of being a single mum. Thanks very much for joining us. So Pace Car Rentals is an interesting story, started by an entrepreneur in 2016 who didn't have a single car to his name but decided to hire a car from his mum and subsequently from friends in order to hire on to customers, and has now built that business to 5,000 cars. When did you join Pace, and what's been your contribution in terms of ensuring that you get the right people to join the firm?
Okay, thank you for the beautiful welcome, Bumi, and a warm welcome to your viewers at home. So I joined Pace Car Rental in 2022. In fact, tomorrow is my work anniversary. So I've been with the company for 3 years now. When I joined the company, we had about 4 branches nationwide, and we had about 150 employees back then. So I've been very instrumental into getting us to where we are today. We have about 9 branches across the nation. We'll be opening up a few more branches in Nelspruit, in Pinetown, and soon to be in Soweto. We've got close to now 500 staff members. So getting the right talent has been a challenge for us. And as when I started, I made it an impact for myself that it's not just about filling the seats with a bum. So it's about getting the right talent that will move with us forward. A big thing for us with Grenville, our CEO, he's a great pioneer who has instilled this in all us, the management at Pace Car Rental, is that we need to instill and develop our talent. So we don't want to waste our resources and our time on just bums on seats. We hire the people that are focused, that are driven, that have the grit, and that are solutions driven, that can take us forward in our solutions, affordable solutions that we have as Pace Car Rental.
Kind of went ahead of me, because that was going to be my next question. That is, how do you ensure that you retain talent and keep that talent revitalized and make them feel like they're actually making a contribution to the business?
Okay, so we make sure that our talent is valued, that they are challenged, that they are always driven, that they're always seen. It makes it very easy for us because our company is always changing, it's always adapting, it's always evolving. We are actually lucky enough to be a growing company. So we, as I've mentioned earlier, that we develop our own talent. So as the company grows, we make sure that these positions are also filled internally. We create the positions as they are developed. We promote our internal talent into these positions.
Yeah, it wasn't a mistake on my part to mention your personal circumstances, because this is quite important, especially for ladies or young people who are watching. I mentioned that you're a single mum and you're having to juggle these 2 important jobs. What's been your secret in getting that balance right? And what's your advice to women out there who may believe that being a single mother is an impediment for professional success?
Okay, so there's really no perfect balance. I'd be lying if I said there was. It's just about a lot of planning and priorities. So planning your weeks ahead. Obviously, there will be things that jump in here and there, but just being there, just being present in all your aspects of life. So at work, I'm fully active. I'm fully I'm fully present. When I'm at home, if I'm needed for hockey matches, when I'm needed at home for homework, I'm fully a mom. So there needs to be a balance between the two. And our children are honestly our biggest motivators. I'd be lying if I said that I had a bigger motivator than that. So she honestly, my daughter, she's almost 10. She is honestly my biggest motivator, and she keeps me going. Every day I wake up, I make sure that I need to be her role model, as she's almost a young lady as well.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Nkanyezi, and giving us insights into how you've made it in your field. That was Nkanyezi Mhlongo. She's the head of talent acquisition at Pace Car Rental.